Welcome to Am I the Bleep?
Welcome to Am I the Bleep, the podcast where we decide whether or not people are bleeps or not. Right, John?
I have a confession to make,
Go for it.
Jonathan. I've been a bleep the whole time.
No way.
Yeah.
How did you hide in plain sight like that?
Well, I was replaced early on in the podcast with a bleep, and
Oh.
I actually didn't even know that I was a bleep until recently.
So, are you a master of disguise? Is that what it is?
No, I just I feel like normal people. I have dreams, I have aspirations, but I'm also a bleep.
What does a bleep aspire to be? Or what can a bleep aspire to be? Why are we setting limits?
Anything they want.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
On this show, we take these fun little posts from Reddit and we coach people and we answer the question. We answer the age-old question: are they an asshole? Asshole.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, just wanted to make sure I got the full scope of that one.
Or a shoal.
Oh, yes. Like the orthotics.
Yeah. I'm a doctor and an asshole. Does that mean I can start a line of products?
Dr. Scholes.
Dr. Scholes. I would buy that.
Yeah, you would. You probably would. You probably would walk into a store and be like, "Oh, is this a novelty store?" and be like super stoked about it, but your feet would feel great.
Yeah, and you would be like okay, so what's the asshole part of the product? Is that it costs too much? Is that it makes your feet smell?
Honestly, I think they're a pretty good product. I never thought about orthotics until Dr. Scholes, and then suddenly I'm like, wow, like what a nifty idea.
What a privilege to not have to think about orthotics until encountering Dr. Shaw. I was brought in to get orthotics for the first time when I was some ridiculously young age, like 6 years old, and this old angry podiatrist looks at my young body and says, "This boy has flat feet," with no remorse. No,
He didn't even look at your feet. He just knew.
Yeah, he didn't look at my feet. He looked in my eyes and said that he saw my potential and found it wanting and decided that I have flat feet.
Well, he knew you were a bleep. That's why.
And then then he wrapped my feet in plaster, which was the way at the time, and it felt so unpleasant, but also kind of pleasant. Like, you don't like it, but once you're there and you learn to like it. And then they take it off and nothing has ever felt better. You're just like, my feet can breathe again. I am renewed. And then 3 to 6 weeks later you get these orthotics that at first make your feet feel like they're dying, and then you walk on them for long enough and your whole body is better. But fun fact,
I'm ready.
I let mine go 10 years without replacing once, and when I went to see a podiatrist well after my medical education, I got the sternest talking to.
Well, what did they say?
She was so mad.
And a podiatrist is a doctor for children, right?
No. Well, I mean, I guess parts of for children's feet, and also adult feet, but no, she was very unimpressed with me. She said, "You should know better. You have to replace them." 2 to 5 years.
This was after medical school, right?
Yeah, so she's just like, "Dr. Rom,
you fool,
you fucked up,
you bleep."
You bleep. And that's actually how I found out that I was a bleep.
Makes sense. I actually got orthotics too at a young age, even before I knew about Dr. Scholes. And my parents brought me in because apparently, and I had no idea, in school there was a doctor following me around because I walked funny. And they thought, oh, like he has feet problems. But I never had feet problems. I was just like a funny kid, apparently. Like they're just like, oh, he walks around weird. There must be something physically wrong with him. No,
just a silly guy.
Just mentally.
That's really funny. Hey, I'm going to try something.
Do
because
it.
I've gotten some feedback about the audio quality of our little show, and I think that this might fix it. Now you can't see this, but I have moved the microphone closer to me now. Am I too loud?
How far were you from the microphone
I
before?
was pretty far.
Oh yeah, that's why you lose out all the the low parts of your voice travel like to all sorts of different places. You have to be close to the mic. I'm always like here. And like actually when I scream and do those parts of the vocals,
Sure.
whenever I hit a high note, I actually move the microphone pretty far from my face because there's a lot more air coming to hit those notes.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I'm doing low stuff, I actually have the mic, I'm not cupping the mic, but I put the mic really, really close to me because that adds a lot more of the low end in my voice. And that makes me sound like a ferocious beast,
So you're
like
saying
Maggie.
I can sound like a late night radio host because I've moved the microphone closer to my mouth?
And now you do.
Hey
And
everyone,
because you're a
welcome
late night
to
radio host, you can read our first post.
Okay, I will. Um,
That was Miles Davis, and the song is White Snow.
all right. This is not the post to read in a low voice.
No, 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 you have to do it. You have to do it.
Okay.
Only the title, though, and then you can move on.
Okay. Am I the asshole for kicking a girl out of my party for calling her boyfriend daddy?
I probably owe you $5 for that.
I feel dirty. Okay.
Okay, carry on.
I, a 24-year-old female, was hosting a small scale hangout with about 15 friends. One girl, who is 23, is an acquaintance of mine, and she came with her boyfriend. We were all sitting around in the main room and eating pizza when she came to sit and sat on her boyfriend's lap. A little weird since there were open seats, but I didn't say anything. While we were talking as a group, she would always refer to her boyfriend as Daddy. She would interject with things like, Daddy just bought me a new stand mixer, and Daddy looks so handsome in this shirt, right? I told him to get it. At first, we thought she was joking or messing with us, but she continued doing it, and the rest of us were side eyeing each other and were kind of uncomfortable. I asked her if she could save the pet names for home because some of us were feeling uncomfortable. She got upset and told me to stop making such a big deal over a nickname and slut shaming her. I told her that wasn't my intention at all, but I would appreciate if she could stop because it was killing the vibe. She started ranting at me about a whole lot of stuff, and I just told her and her boyfriend to please leave. Her boyfriend was pissed too, but they eventually got out. The rest of the evening was less uncomfortable and way more peaceful. A few of my friends who didn't know the girl I kicked thanked me for making her leave, but we all felt kind of awkward because of what happened. Am I the asshole?
There's an important edit there, which is that a few of my friends who didn't know the girl I kicked out, the original poster, I don't think actually kicked the person. So I think that's just important to share. Um, yeah, I
Hmm.
think, yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there. The second thing I think is important to bring up, and I know we spoke about whether or not we're going to talk about the usernames last time, but in this case, I think it's important because their username is throwaway party dad. And I think that's critical to the story here. Usually, like we
I
don't
think
make judgments based on somebody's name, but I think here it adds to the story.
I think everyone should throw away their party dads after a party. I feel like the party dad wastage build up in the house is too
Oh,
high.
it's interesting that you read it that way because I thought it was like, oh, like the guy shows up, it's like, oh, that's the throwaway party dad. Like he's obviously the party dad.
Well, what makes him a throwaway party dad in that case?
No, like a throwaway is like, oh, obviously they're the party dad. Like I'd walk in and you'd be like, throwaway emo
Oh,
kid.
an assumed party dad.
Yeah, assumed, assumed,
Okay, an assume it. Okay.
ashhold,
Uh,
right? Assumed.
assume.
Love
What
it.
do you assume? What do you assume is the assholery going on
Okay.
here?
And yeah, and for those of us, we've been tuning in since the beginning of this one. But for those
Yeah,
of you who are tuning into this show for the first time, we're ranking people in 4 quadrants. So we
yeah.
have people who are not the asshole, people who are kind of the asshole, people who are pretty much the asshole, and people who are most definitely the asshole.
And if you've been tuning in from the beginning and you're saying you guys have never done that, you're absolutely correct. We have never done this, but we've decided that since most people seem to kind of hover around a sweet spot of not vehicular manslaughter, we say, you know what? Let's just cut right to the chase. let's just do it. Let's just say the four. What were those four quadrants again? Just so everyone has them in their mind while they're listening to us talk.
Yeah, so not the asshole, kind of
Mm-hmm.
the asshole, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much the asshole, or definitely the asshole.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
everybody in the world falls into one of these four quadrants with everything that they do.
Literally,
There's no wiggle room here. Like you did something, you're one of those four just automatically.
I had green beans for dinner,
Yes.
and that makes me sort of an asshole.
Oh, definitely the asshole. You have it all wrong.
Oh no.
But that's why we're here. We're here to
That
talk
difference
about
of
why people
opinions
fit into
generates
those
content. Yeah.
quadrants.
Yeah. 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 Of course.
Generates
Of course.
content. No, no, no. We're just trying to have a meaningful discussion. You're like, no, no, no. Feed the content machine.
No content. Yeah, we need content.
Got to get that content. Got to
Only
get it.
content. That's all I care about. So, Jonathan, are they the asshole? Is
So,
she the asshole?
so I'm gonna go ahead and dissect this a little bit. So,
Mm,
just sort of like a summary because we went a little off book there, but importantly, so we
yeah.
needed to sort of lay down the rules. We have female 24. She has a small scale hangout of about 15 friends, which for me is all my friends. So, like, respect. And then one girl who's female 23, who's an acquaintance who comes in with her boyfriend and does the whole daddy thing. Um, so that's a thing. And she's saying it a lot. Daddy bought the new stand mixer. Daddy looks so handsome in the shirt. I told him to get it. And everyone's feeling a little uncomfortable by this. In the group, the original poster says, "Hey, you're making some of us feel uncomfortable. I'd appreciate it if you could stop."
Yeah.
And then she sort of blew up, said, "You're slut shaming me." And then eventually she and her boyfriend or her dad, sorry, her boyfriend
Her dad,
left.
her father.
I'm so, it's a new thing for me, but I should,
Sure.
I'm not judging. This is my first time reading it and I'm just processing everything.
Mm-hmm. Her
But
papa, we know.
yeah, yeah, her papa, her poppy. And she and her boyfriend left. Everyone appreciated that the original poster said, "Okay, you did it. You kicked them out." But they felt a bit awkward because they kicked somebody out. They weren't being so inclusive.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think it's a kind of the asshole situation, and here's the
Mm.
reason. Initially my thoughts on this were not the asshole. You spoke up for your friends, like you set down a firm directive saying, "Hey, look, like like you do your thing, but you're making some of us feel uncomfortable." And something that I think is really really important that I think we see in quite a few of these posts are people laying down firm directives in group scenarios.
Mm.
And when you lay down firm directives in group scenarios, you immediately throw away all contingencies and leave it to a 50-50 choice in which somebody will either fight or flight. And in this case, somebody who's coming in and, they're a little like out there, right? They're coming in, they're doing the daddy thing, they're extroverted. It could be anxious energy, it could be not anxious energy. And you call them out in front of a group of 15 people, which is not a small group. That's still a lot of people. And again, for me, that's all the friends I have and all the people I know in the world. Um, and calling her out. And in this
Mm.
choice, that person chose to lash out. And even though the thing the original poster said, like, "Hey, like we're a little uncomfortable," had she took that, "Hey, can we go grab a drink in the kitchen? Just want to talk to you for a sec. Hey, like I really appreciate that you and your boyfriend have such an open relationship. That's really, really amazing. And I have a lot to learn from that. But it's starting to make some of the people here feel a little uncomfortable. Can we just tone it down a bit?" The other choice would be to sort of redirect the conversation, like instead of like just everyone you sort of being uncomfortable and quiet and waiting for the daddy to happen, like start something else. So calling her out in a group, even though I think she made the right choice, she stood up for herself, what she wanted, and her friends. She did it in a group, and it kind of blew up in her face when there was really a better choice.
Mm.
Um, and that's my opinion. Um, so deal with it.
I
No
have a
jokes,
question.
John. I want to hear.
I have a
Yeah,
question
go
for
for
you,
it.
Jonathan. Do you use pet names in your relationship?
So we do.
Mm-hmm.
I call my girlfriend Smiley,
Mm-hmm.
um, just because
Mm-hmm.
we like that name. She struggles with, and she'd be totally okay with me sharing this. Like over COVID, she was discovering that she struggled with depression, and every morning I would call. She had lost her job, and every morning I would call her to say, like, let's get out of bed, let's move on with our day, go for a walk,
Mm,
turn this around, right? And one day she was just like not having it, and like, like really like snarling, not like
mhm.
really snarling, like that's not her, but the face.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are not watching, who are listening to this and not watching it, giving like a really poor version of the Rock's eye thing that he does. Um, and I was like, "Come on, Smiley, get out of bed." And for whatever reason, me kind of like poking a bit of fun at it, just like turned into the pet name, which is kind of fun. But everyone around us, like most of our friends, are pretty open, and we're all kind of out there. So
Mhm.
nobody's like, that's weird. But I will say, like around her family and stuff like that, I call her Cassandra. I'm not like,
Right.
hey, Smiley, like go to your dad and see like what he said about it. Like there's a, and this is just for me. There's kind of a time or place. How about for you?
So, um, when my girlfriend and I started dating, we were joking about how pet names can go so over the top so fast.
Yeah.
And one of the pet names that we realize is feels very over the top very fast, especially early in a relationship, is lover.
Mm.
And so we would jokingly call each other lover in the most exaggerated kind of disgusting way we could muster.
Hey,
And
lover, but only in an ironic way.
yeah, exactly. We were being like cool and ironic. And kind of like, when you start listening to Billy Joel ironically, and then over time you become one of the top listeners on Spotify for Billy Joel.
It used to give
Uh
you the ick, 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 ick,
yeah,
but
yeah.
now it
So
doesn't.
no. Well, you ought to know by now that what happened was that we started calling each other that in earnest very, very soon after, without thinking about it. So much so that we've said it in public several times. Margaret's parents have made fun of us many, many times for calling each other
Yeah.
that without any sort of sense of shame. And so my thought of despite how funny this is, that it is pretty funny that she calls her boyfriend daddy, is that you can end up doing that as a joke, and then it becomes very real and you don't even notice you're doing it. And so I
Hmm.
completely agree that you have put someone on the spot a little bit for something that could just have happened because it was funny at first and now it's just a thing. And it is fine to ask someone to, maybe turn down PDA so that other people aren't uncomfortable, but it's probably better to do it in private, for the reasons that you said. I don't have much more to say than that because I feel like it's
Because I just didn't shut up about it for like five
well, you
minutes.
you made a good point, but I would boil it down to this: a common courtesy deserves another.
Hmm.
So if you're asking for the common courtesy of people to not make other people uncomfortable at a party, then you should have the common courtesy to tell it to them in private so that they feel respected and not put on the spot.
I think there's
So
another
so
layer.
yeah,
Yeah.
sort of an asshole. Sort of an
Yeah.
asshole to summarize.
I think there's another layer to this now that I'm thinking a bit more, because I don't think before I speak. I just speak.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, first thought, best thought, for sure.
Absolutely. Born and raised that way.
Yeah.
Um, now I just forgot what I was going to say. But actually, what I was going to say is that there are layers to this too, which is that
Mm,
um, the original poster mentions that this person coming in is an acquaintance. And as someone who experiences anxiety at a pretty intense level, sometimes I come into situations that I'm uncomfortable with. And because my baseline anxiety is so high, I don't actually have the ability to filter out, like, to be an acquaintance at a place. And in this case, there could be, and this could be some good questions if we were coaching that individual, would be, she's coming into a place, could have a lot of anxious energy, and she's like, oh, like this is my boyfriend, like I call him daddy, and it's just like without the filter they're going there. And then calling her out in public too. You could be like pushing on a button, pushing on a trigger, which for her, she's already anxious. She's like already blurting out and not filtering things, and calling her out. Like you could have been calling her out without knowing that she's actually like struggling with something. Like you only react to really what you see and what you get. But part of the reason why we want to talk to people in private is because we don't actually always know what's going on underneath the hood. And that's why there's another, like, to reinforce the point, I think it's always important, like, pull somebody aside, like, say, oh yeah, like, let's go grab a drink, let's go to the kitchen, hey, like, I want to get to know you a bit better, just talk it out.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think we pretty easily coach the OP, but I think everyone is coachable here, because I would point out, hey, you came to this party, you're making new acquaintances, maybe new
Mm-hmm.
friends. Your goal is to have them see you in your best light. So it's not like you're trying to make everyone uncomfortable. So it's in line with the girl in question. Her goal is to not make everyone uncomfortable. Usually when people go to a party, they want to make friends. So you could reframe it that way. And then you just have to be able to frame how to deal with confrontation better than to start ranting at someone who's accusing you of something, because yes, they could have respected you more and maybe had a private conversation, but you can respond and being like, I understand what you're saying, no problem, let me, I'll dial it back, and use the opportunity to try to make peace, and you can laugh about it later. Not every confrontation has to turn into a blow up where you throw someone under a bus and leave.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of these posts are interesting, and like maybe we'll see in the next post too, is like this idea where we're trying to judge whether or not the original poster is the asshole or not, but really most people in every situation all need to do the work. In this case, there's the
Yeah.
work of having like, hey, like maybe let's pull them aside next time. But then for that other person, there's the work of like, conflict is going to happen, and how do I respond to conflict? Because we're 23, there's a lot more conflict to come, and we want to become better at dealing with that, anxiety or not, right? Like
You're
walking it,
23, it's 2023, it's nothing but conflict coming
nothing but
from
conflict.
nothing but conflict. Yeah, we're not telling people to be robots. I always
Yeah,
I always like to emphasize that, is that you're allowed to be angry, you're allowed to feel things, and it's
yeah,
important to feel things, but it's also important to be able to remember what it is you're trying to do in a situation, what your values are, what are you trying to accomplish. If you go to a party, you probably wanted to go to a party and be at a party. And if you didn't want to be at a party and someone said, okay, now you have to leave, you'd be like, cool.
yeah,
Later. Bye. But if you fight it that hard, you probably wanted to be there. So you should probably try to do things that align with that.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. All right.
Speaking of things that align with goals, would you like to read another post that would align with our goal of making a podcast episode?
It would be my honor.
Right
But I'm not going to read the title in a deep voice.
on.
I'm already there.
Oh yeah, that's right. High voice?
um,
No, never mind. Forget.
yes.
Audio poison.
Oh, I'm the bleep. I am the bleep.
Every episode, one of us is the bleep, and we have to earn that title.
And it's up to you to determine who it is.
Yeah,
Email
write
us
us
at
an
Jonathan's
email.
at the journal that talk back and let us know who the bleep really is.
And is that Jonathan's with a Z or an S?
Absolutely with the Z. You could do an
Okay.
S too. It'll still go to the same place actually.
Okay, cool. Good.
But we
That's
like the
fine.
Z. Let me do this, and then
Yeah.
now it's with a Z.
Yeah.
It's with a Z.
Leave us, and leave us a review on iTunes podcasts or Apple podcasts or whatever it's called, and just like let us know which one is the asshole. 5-star reviews, and we'll read your interpretation of who is the bleep.
Yeah, absolutely. Like if you can't rate each of us individually, you have to rate both of us. But in the description of your review, you can
Yeah.
say who you hate.
Yeah, 5 stars, 1 bleep
Yeah, exactly.
per review.
Speaking of the bleep, let's find out.
Yeah.
Am I the asshole for telling my girlfriend I'm not her maid in public.
Ooh,
Oof.
oof, oof,
I, a
oof.
male 29, recently got laid off a few months ago, so I'm out of work and take care of all of the household chores and childcare while I'm applying to new jobs. Yesterday, I went to a party with my girlfriend, female 29. She was talking out a situation. There was a typo there. Yesterday I went to a party with my girlfriend, female 29. She was talking about our situation.
Mm.
There we go. With her friends while I was sitting with the group. She laughingly said, "I don't mind. It's nice having my own personal maid." And everyone kind of laughed along with her. I told her, "I'm not your maid because I don't like jokes like this," and she told me to chill out. I told her I was being serious because she's made jokes like this before and I hate it. I really don't like being the only one to do the housework, and I can't wait to get back to work and have a more equal arrangement. This kind of made the situation awkward. When we got home, she blew up at me for making such a big deal over small talk and called me a major asshole. She said I should be grateful she didn't say worse things about me considering how she's footing all my bills right now. Jonathan Rom, Dr. Jonathan Rom, Dr. Jonathan Romathan. Am I the asshole?
Oh God, it's funny. It's good job. Good job that you picked thematic posts because, again, a conversation that could be moved to a private setting and would probably
Yep, yep.
benefit from it. Yeah, you are definitely the asshole. Not for your opinion. Your opinion is fine. You can not like doing housework. You can feel like it is an unequal situation because of the liminal in between space that you're in now between jobs. I've literally been in this exact scenario and I didn't mind doing the housework, but there were days where I was just like, man, I'm doing a lot of the housework. Oh, yeah, my girlfriend's at work all day and I'm looking for jobs and what? So I've understood, I understand this feeling, and I don't think that it's completely unreasonable. But if you could bring it up in public and use it as some sort of conflict in media res during a conversation with your friends, what are you trying to do? That's the question I would ask. Are you trying to put your girlfriend on the spot so that she has to change the arrangement or else lose face in front of her friends? That's not very nice. One would say that's an asshole thing to do. Are you trying to feel better about the situation, even though you know this isn't going to change it? You're just trying to vent in front of your friends and to have your friends back you up and say, oh, you're so right. Also, not a very kind thing to do to your partner. And is it in line with your goal to do less work? I don't know. I don't think so. I think it's a good way to be single and then you have to do all the work and you're single. But it might not be in line with your stated goals, OP. So I would say that this is definitely an asshole situation. um the coaching that I would do, I think we can both come up with it, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Jonathan, what do you think?
Yeah, I think this is a situation where they should have just talked about it privately.
Mm,
The whole like it's nice having my own personal maid thing feels a lot to me like um when parents ask how like somebody else's children are and they're like they're so lovely dot 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 when they're sleeping. Like that kind of thing.
I've
It's
never heard that in my life, but
oh
that's a
my
pretty
dad says
pretty
that all
funny
the
line.
time. All the time. Mr. Friedman loves that shit. And sorry if you're listening to this now, Dad. Sorry, Mr. Friedman. Um, but it's kind of like a trope being like, oh yeah, like they're at home. It's like I have a maid. Granted,
Mm,
it's not the nicest thing to say, and like it could be that you just meant to like brush something off quickly as a joke so you're not talking about the depths of like somebody being laid off for a few months, because of course that gets hard. There's no question about it. If you've gotten laid off, you're used to working all the time, and now like you're literally just doing the house chores, not just but like you're doing the house chores, taking care of the children. It's a huge change, so there's no discounting that. But this
mm,
is a situation where, and it's actually very similar to what we were talking before about the daddy girl. daddy's girl, which is that um, there's a. I'm so sorry.
Papa's princess.
Come on. There's a way to deal with conflict in a really healthy way. And like in
Mm,
this case, this could be their first time going out in a long time.
mm.
And there's a there's a timeline out of Abed's 6 timelines where the original poster just like, oh, and just moved on, and then
Uh,
spoke about it later and said,
yes,
hey, like,
way to bring so much attention to it.
yeah,
It's a good point.
yeah. And this, like, no doubt, like, I'm sure tensions are high, and it's not fair, like, that you have to go through that transition. It's tough.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely talk about it later, because you're actually escalating the situation and creating a tougher thing to deal with. Now, what I will say is they're actually both, my judgment is they're both kind of the assholes.
100%. And I
So
was literally about to say that.
so
I
in
was
this
literally about to
case,
say
let
it
me finish my
extend
thought, then you can
never.
agree with me, John.
No, no, it's too good a thought. I must agree immediately.
Perfect. I'll take it. It's because me so good.
Yeah.
And I love when you say that I'm good. And that is that it's not that she said the original thing, it's that after she continued to escalate it and it's like, oh yeah, like, you're not allowed to say anything because I'm paying for you right now. There's no way that that's like, the rest of their night must have sucked. Like,
That's
people
not
were
cool.
sleeping on the couches, nobody was in the bed. The kids were like, where are they? Like, that kind of situation. Um, if you're in the middle of a conflict, it's really, really, I don't know, for me too. Like, it's a gut reaction to just like dig the nail in as far as you can go and then later be like, oh shit, I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
But it's a really great skill to use this event, reflect on it, and say, okay, next time we get into a fight, which is bound to happen if, like, he really is trying to get a job, it's not working out. I'm working all the time and then have to come home and also probably take care of the kids and like deal with my grumpy husband. Figure out, like, have a conversation together and talk about your updated conflict resolution method, because for years you probably had a thing that worked and now that thing isn't working.
Right.
It's like when you move into a house with a new person, you have to come up with a set of rules that kind of work for both of you. And like in any good roommate situation, every few months you sort of have dinner and talk about how things are going. In this case, things are obviously shifted and not going in a way that's happy, to the point where there's an anger that's coming out around friends. Talk it out, reset the rules, come up with new norms, and it's gonna be okay. But stop escalating the issue every time, like, somebody's like throwing a punch, somebody's like, haha, but I could punch you harder.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I also, and I couldn't agree with you more. I would say to the girlfriend that there's actually good evidence that suggests that relationships in which both partners can, rib each other a bit and make fun of each other
Mhm.
and poke fun of each other playfully, it's engaging in a form of play and it like builds a stronger relationship. However, play is play and play is only fun when everyone is having fun.
It's only funny until someone gets hurt.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so you have to be willing to apologize and say, what I did hurt you, clearly, and I'm not trying to hurt you. That goes a long way. It's shocking how far that goes. And that is the way of de-escalation that actually leads to the conversation of like, okay, so how do we do this? Like, how do we fix this? What do we do here? Because that's what everyone wants to get to. That's the shortcut, is like, I wasn't trying to hurt you. How do we fix this? Let's try to deal with this. Let's try to fix this head on, as opposed to let's fight. Let's deal with the fight, and then we can work on not only fixing our current problem but also our general relationship and how we talk to each other, which is clearly what's going to end
Yeah.
up happening here, or it'll end the relationship because it breeds resentment when you try to hurt each other more and more.
Yeah, I think there's this piece where a relationship is often two very different people with two very different upbringings coming together and like figuring it out. And it works
Mm.
well. Like if you have a good thing, it works well for the first year, hopefully. And then after that, you're aging, you're growing up, especially 20s. There are a lot of changes that are happening. Like some relationships have literally gone from we've been in school together to now we have a child together. Lots of things happen, or even we've moved in with each other, whereas before we weren't living with each other. That's a different relationship now, and you have to warm up to it and sort of renegotiate those rules. But that can often not be such a terrifying conversation. That can often be a really healthy and important thing to do. So do that, people.
Yeah.
Do it. Just do it.
Make peace.
Make
Not
peace.
more. All
Peace in
right.
our time.
And the last piece of
Our
our
time.
podcast. Oh, okay. Yeah, whatever. The last piece of our time in this show
Yeah.
is this last post, which says, "Am I the asshole for making my younger sister watch my baby? I am a 24-year-old female, and I have my own apartment. My fiance is deployed, and I have a 1-year-old son. My young sister Ella, who's 18, lives with me. She pays no rent and goes to the nearby college. She has no job, and I financially support her since she is in school. Our parents live 3 hours away, so it was a better fit. I work 5 days a week, and my son is in daycare. I got called in on a Saturday. I'm off weekends, and the daycare closes. Is the daycare's the daycare is closed on weekends, so I pleaded with my sister to watch my son. She refused and told me it was her weekend off from school and she had a lot of studying to do. I told her I really needed her to do this for me. I never asked her. She told me I should just find a sitter online. I told her, no, you need to watch him. I take care of you and you can do this one thing for me, or you can go back and live with our parents. She got really upset and said I'm throwing what I do for her in her face and how she's an adult and my son wasn't her kid. She did agree though, and I went to work. While I was on break, I checked my phone and had numerous texts from my parents saying I was abusing my power over my sister and that my son wasn't her responsibility. I never ever asked my sister for help with the baby. She lives with me, so she's able to go to the school she wanted to go to. They don't end it with this, but I guess, am I
Throw
the
it in.
asshole?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think what's interesting about today's posts is that even though they're three very different like contexts, situations, in similar ways, they kind of go together and have a similar solution. And before we were talking about this idea of roomies and changing relationships.
Hmm.
So we have the 24-year-old who has a fiance, who has a 1-year-old son. The fiance is deployed, probably in an army. That's what deployment usually is, I guess. And the younger sister is 18 and lives with her and is just starting school. Probably when they were growing up, they had a sibling relationship, right? You're play fighting, you're doing things. The responsibilities usually in those times are not high. Now, when you have a child as a single mom and your 18-year-old sister comes to live with you,
Oh
that's a
my
different
God, they're
relationship.
roommates.
Yeah, they are roommates in this situation. And what I really believe in, it doesn't matter if it's a partner, if it's a sibling, if it's a friend, if it's somebody you met on Kijiji, which I've done, by the way, and it was awesome. He was on So You Think You Can Dance, I found out later, which was, and he didn't teach me jack shit. Like, I could have been a much better,
Unforgivable.
un,
Unforgivable.
I would have been so much better in the dating market if that was the case. My poor girlfriend has to deal with me at weddings now, and
Your danceless,
it's garbage. I am the
your
worst.
danceless boo.
And everyone's like, "Oh, he's a drummer. He's got rhythm." It's like, no, I not that way. I can
No.
tap like this, but if you want me to do the cha cha, no chance.
No cha cha chance.
No cha cha chance. Cha 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 chance. Pew pew pew. But the idea is that whenever you reform or form a relationship, after the small talk, you have to set the rules. In this case, it's like, hey, younger sister, not only are you going to be able to live here, You're going to go to the university that you've wanted to go to. It's super close, by the way. You only have to take one bus, and I'm going to take care of you. You're not going to have to pay rent. You can focus on school. We can even cook together and hang out, and it's going to be super chill. But I'm a working single mom right now, and once in a while, we might have to figure out a babysitting thing. And in that case, this time when the younger sister would have been called on, it would have been no problem, most
Mm-hmm.
likely. But in
Mm-hmm.
this case, she's like, oh my God, I have exams coming up. I have tests. I have projects due. Probably. She's 18, first year of school. And then suddenly she's like, oh yeah, you're also going to watch my baby. That could be like, that's unexpected. It could be frightening. Do we know if she's ever watched a baby before? Because that's a whole thing. Um, and that's tough. But then she went to the parents and said, like, older sister's being mean to me. And then they called her and said, you're abusing your power. The two people who are having the conflict are not conflicting with each other and therefore are not able to come to a resolution. And also, they didn't talk to each other about the rules, the norms, or what they need from that relationship. In this case, a roomie relationship. And something needs to be done here. So in this case, if the original poster the asshole, there's nothing wrong with asking your younger sister to watch the baby. And in this case, there was a bit of resistance, you held firm, and it's totally okay. But you have to have the conversation ahead of time about what your expectations are. That way, in these situations, removed from conflict, you're good to go. And I think there could have been an opportunity for that. So I think in this case, to answer everybody's burning question, compared to the other posts, I don't think original poster is actually at all an asshole. I think, you're a single mom, you have to work, and you have a 1 year old son. That's a lot. Asking your sister is really not a big ask, but you can go beyond it by doing the thing, having the conversation, resetting the rules. The sister was kind of being like, a bit of a dweeb, like just watch the kid. But in this case, for whatever reason, she had to put down. Um, I think she's kind of the asshole, but also 18. 18's not like a full grown up yet. So like there's room to grow there for sure, I think.
Would you have felt comfortable watching in a 1 year old at 18 years old when you were 18?
Yeah. I I was already like full youth worker mode at 18.
Mm-hmm.
I was in school, but I was working full time as like and working with some like very unique situations already. So for
Mm-hmm.
me, but I'm an anomaly. I recognize that. Like a lot of people at 18 are still partying every night and doing all of that. They're not necessarily in baby watching mode, and maybe as I mentioned, they don't have experience watching babies. That could be a scary thing. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I got.
No, no, I was literally asking. Like, I'm curious. What when I envision being an 18-year-old and being asked to babysit a child, I immediately, empathetically feel panic. I feel like
Yeah.
that's such a scary proposition because it's like I've never watched a 1 year old before. What if something happens? And also, with the limited time you get when you're in undergrad, depending on what you're doing, on what you're um what you're studying, it could actually be a big imposition. However, I think that we both kind of see that it's not unreasonable to ask your sister who is benefiting from staying with you to do this thing, but it
Yeah.
would have been far better to have agreed upon that thing beforehand, because it seems like your first option to go to when you wanted your son babysat, um given your fiance's deployment, is to have your sister watch your child. That's a conversation. That's not something, I put it in the same realm of like buying someone a puppy. It's like that's a lot of responsibility to put on someone, as something that you just consider like, of course they'll like it. Of course this is the thing that they want and want to do. It's a big ask, and I don't think that makes you an asshole. I think that makes you um maybe presumptuous, maybe a little bit, a little bit uh uh I think you and your sister feel very comfortable taking advantage of each other's kindness, for better or worse. And I
Yeah, it's
think,
like an assumption they made.
yes, your sister assumed she will never have to babysit or take care of a kid, and you assumed the exact opposite. And I think that that makes you two peas in a pod. And so I think that no one's an asshole here, but both people had different ideas of what living in this situation would be like, and you need to clarify what those situations are. I don't think either of you are being assholes, despite on the surface how um how much animosity it bred. And I think that might be the surprising thing. I think a lot of people are gonna say, wow, the younger sister, total asshole. But that's why I started with what I started with. An 18-year-old being asked to babysit a 1-year-old. A lot of people, I'm sure, have a lot of experience babysitting younger children, but it sounds like she might be the youngest child. I was the youngest child. I had, at 18, no experience taking care of small kids. I was the smallest in my family. I had no babysitting experience. I wasn't sure what I would do really if I had to be in that situation. And that might be the situation here. And if you empathize with the 18-year-old, you understand she's acting like a kid does when they don't know what they need to do. They call their parents, they complain to their parents, and they, vehemently refuse until their hand is forced and they have to do exactly what they were told. I think that this is a good opportunity if you really want to be the older sister and have authority here. You have to take on the responsibility of the authority and show your sister how to take care of your kid. Explain to her that that's the situation, that might happen. Teach her, be willing to listen to her concerns and walk her through the process, because if you expect it to happen in the future, you probably want your kid watched by someone who knows what the hell they're doing.
Yes. Yeah, assuming makes an ass out of you and me, which is the first time that that has been contextual to the thing we're doing and
Oh
also
yeah,
the
it
theme of this
literally
show.
makes you an asshole out of you and me, but it's just not fun to say asshole.
No, it's not.
A
And if you,
showloom?
that sounds Yiddish.
Yeah.
And if
Ah,
you're
showloom.
Shalom.
Showloom.
And if you're assuming you know where to find us and listen to the
You don't.
podcast,
You're
you don't.
wrong.
You have
You're
no.
wrong. You're gonna listen today, and you're gonna babysit this 1-year-old.
Yeah, you have no. You have no clue what you're in for.
You have no idea.
So if you're interested in checking out other episodes of this podcast, go to Spotify,
Mm,
go to Apple Podcasts,
mm,
Google us.
mhm,
Am I the Bleep? We're on TikTok as Am I the Bleep now. We're officially changed from just me. We're Am I the Bleep. We're going live 3 times a week, sometimes more, posting like 5 of these a day.
mhm.
There's a lot of content. We are feeding that content machine. We're on Instagram at Journal That Talks Back. Um, and if you're interested in learning more about the work we do at the Journal That Talks Back, you can check us out at, wait for it, thejournalthattalksback.com. Just throw that in that old Google search, and you can learn about our coaching, where you have a call with me and I match you with one of our fantastic coaches, and you get to track your mood, your sleep, your stress, and journal, and your coach will read and to respond to each and every single journal within 24 hours. It's a coach in your pocket. It's unlimited coaching for just $200 a month, which is the same price as 1 hour with any other professional, and you get it for a month. So you got to try it. Go to thejournalthattalksback.com and book an intake call with me. And if you're looking for other places to find us that are a little more unique, John, that's your cue.
So I was checking to see if we're on Yik Yak, but Yik Yak is still functional. It turns out they came back, so
Oh, that's good.
we're not on Yik Yak. We are on Whisper.
Mm-hmm.
We're on Tout.
Mm-hmm.
We're on um so, so is it could be Science Scape or Science Escape. It's kind of like a Pet Smart and or a Pet Smart
Or like Egg
situation.
Smart.
Oh yeah,
or
egg
egg
smart or
smart.
egg smart. This isn't going to make any sense to anyone who isn't Canadian, but we're on those social media apps
And we are
too,
on egg
probably.
smart too.
We're an expert. If you walk into your local Exmart, if you're Canadian and you see us eating eggs, say hi and then leave us
Absolutely.
alone because eggs are best enjoyed in silence. And to end our show,
Round off the corner.
we always take a little bit of wisdom and we send it your way.
Absolutely.
And this week, the quote that you're going to just grow and learn from is, every asshole brings me closer to the next home run.